Everyone's focused on Nancy and Steve. Everyone's focused on Donald. But a big twist in the second stimulus package negotiation remains Mitch McConnell. And today, not once, but twice, he came out with comments that said he's the king of the decision, not anyone else. This is a special report on why Mitch McConnell will ultimately hold the key for your second stimulus package. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LA with a special edition of stimulus coverage today. This is normally the unemployment section of stimulus afternoons on Afternoons LA, but today it's going to deal especially with what Mitch McConnell is doing in the stimulus negotiations. So go to the Focus channel, subscribe. There's a lot of twists and turns today, and I want you to understand why Mitch is an incredible factor in these negotiations that no one saw coming. Also, like this video. In this video, I will be going over Mitch McConnell's comments this morning, yesterday, and recent days, and why his comments now are certainly percolating in a way that no one had ever seen. Second, I will go over why his impact in the stimulus negotiations is even more important than ever and may either help the president or hurt the president. And finally, I will go over why the president has not prepared appropriately for this situation with Mitch, and this may ultimately cause the problems. I'll also be answering some incredible questions from yesterday. All right, let me get to the breaking news. The breaking news is that Mitch McConnell has given mixed messages before, and he certainly progressed over time as to his position of a second stimulus package. But this morning he told Reuters that he wants another stimulus package to get done right away, but it's unlikely in the next 3 weeks. This was not good news. Let me explain to you how Mitch has suddenly become the core of the focus out of everyone's eyes. First, Mitch McConnell was not included in the original negotiations between Nancy, Steve, Mark, and Chuck. They made a specific purpose not to include Mitch McConnell, and that didn't bode well for anyone. What happened was Mitch McConnell, he wrote the HEALS Act, not Steve Mnuchin. They had been working for weeks on crafting a deal for purposes of the Republican Party, but they couldn't come to it. They ultimately had a disagreement, and that disagreement was manifest in a series of comments between the two and confirmed by press. Ultimately, Mitch was out to write the bill, not Steve. He wrote the HEALS Act by himself. Mitch introduced the HEALS Act, and within days, the president called the bill written by Mitch a waste of time, an irrelevant document. Do you think that bears well for ultimately a person who has to get you the law? No. So that was the first time around. In the weeks that followed thereafter, Steve and Nancy began to negotiate, and then Mitch McConnell was not in the room. He didn't like that. He was ultimately told third party what was happening in the negotiations. And at the time, we understood that Mitch was a important force to get stimulus packages approved because it has to go by the Senate. Let me explain something. For a bill to become a law, it has to be passed by the House, be passed by the Senate, and then signed by the president. If it doesn't pass the Senate, it doesn't become a law. And Mitch McConnell's in the Senate. He's head of the Senate. He's a Republican. And the Republicans lead the Senate. And if you don't get it past his room, it's not going to become a law. Well, a few days ago, negotiations between Steve and Nancy were puttering. They were slowing. And Mitch McConnell came out with a series of very positive remarks. He said, you know what? I think they should get it done, and I think they should get it done, and I think they're pretty close. That was at the end of last week. That was when Nancy said a deal was imminent. Earlier in the week, Mitch slammed Nancy's $2.2 trillion bill as a Democratic wish list. She's not getting serious, were his exact words. Well, guess what? Her bill today is exactly the same bill as it was then. What broadcast news has forgotten was that Mitch McConnell has slammed the bill which Nancy has today, which is the same bill he was. Excuse me, let me say this another way. Mitch McConnell slammed a week ago a bill that Nancy Pelosi has, and that bill is the same bill she has today. So why does anyone think that Mitch McConnell is going to agree to a $2.2 trillion bill? He is categorically not. If there's 100%, if there's one thing that you can guarantee 100% is that Mitch McConnell will not allow the Senate to approve a $2.2 trillion bill. Let's remember, when Nancy's bill arrived in the Senate from the House upwards of about a week ago, it was no accomplishment because every bill goes from the House to the Senate. And when it arrived, what did Mitch do with it? Nothing. It's never going to see time of life. And today, guess what bill Nancy has? The same exact bill. So as we started today, Wall Street was very excited that President Donald Trump said raise the bill offer higher, $1.8 trillion. Wall Street was very higher, said President Trump said go higher, go bigger, Republicans. President was very happy. Wall Street was very happy when the president said, I want to offer more stimulus than even the Republicans or Democrats. Well, guess what? Some broadcasters got it right and said, wait a second, Mitch doesn't like any of this. How do you think it's ever going to pass the time of day? Well, it appears that some of those broadcasters remembered that upwards about a week ago, Chuck Grassley, who's the number 2, I believe, in the Senate, Republican, said, Republicans are barely going to get to 1.5. Anything over that, they're never going to agree to. There's upwards of 20 plus Republicans who won't agree to $1 of stimulus. But to get to 1.5 is a stretch. To get to 1.8 may never, ever happen. Officials in Washington agree that there's a disagreement. I'd like to see us rise above it like we did in March and April, but I think that's unlikely for the next 3 weeks, says Mitch McConnell. He says the situation's kind of murky and it's elbow for political advantage, Mitch McConnell said. Well, what's important to understand is that Mitch McConnell also says that $2.2 trillion is not happening. What's very troubling here is that Mitch McConnell is sort of in a island by himself, and the president is as too. This week, when the president walked away from the coronavirus negotiations, he walked away from a strategic plan to crush the virus, showcasing the deadly contempt for science, governance, and the help and the American people, said Nancy Pelosi. Well, there's an alternate problem, is that the president denies at $1.8 trillion and Mitch McConnell is not. First, substantively, Mitch McConnell is not at $1.8 trillion. Second, it's substantively a number that perhaps no majority of senators would agree to before this election. 3, it's potentially a number that Republicans, if they lose the Senate, may still not approve after the election, but before January. 4, Mitch McConnell has closed the Senate, so they can't vote on anything until middle October. And by all account, they may not vote on this until after the election. So what does this mean for us? It means that in a day in which we can talk about how wonderful and great news it is that the president's doing this and that Steve and Nancy are doing this and that we're arguing for it and that Wall Street's excited for it and everyone's excited for it, there's one person and one room that may ultimately say no. No. That room is the Senate. Mitch McConnell has never supported $2.2 trillion. He has slammed it left and right. And as we sit here today, the president has gone from 1.3 to 1.6 to 1.7 to 1.8. And Nancy has gone from 2.2 to 2.2 to 2.2 and is still at 2.2. And Mitch has never, ever liked and has constantly slammed 2.2 as a number that is dead upon arrival. What's important to understand is that Mitch McConnell has changed. Mitch McConnell has changed. When I moved into stimulus coverage in about May at that time, Mitch McConnell didn't even want to give a single penny for unemployment benefits. Said that unemployment benefits is a way for Americans to get rich off the American government. He said Americans are becoming lazy, they should get back to work, there's jobs, and that unemployment benefits FPUC 2.0 does not need to be extended. He also said the important thing in this economy is not so much the employees, but ensuring the employers are not sued. He also said that he really didn't want to give any money for hazard pay. He didn't want to give a lot of money for food. He didn't want to give a lot of money for anything that is related to students. But he did want to give money for businesses, and businesses. And ultimately, that is the problem as we sit here tonight, that you have a Senate run by Republicans with a Republican leader who ultimately didn't want to give you a lot several months ago. And to this day, he may say a lot of positive remarks, but he has never in writing written anything in the path of what you think could get done. Now, the other thing to consider is the following. The dynamic between the president and Mitch McConnell. Oh, my goodness. These people have categorically not seen eye to eye. And they ultimately wanted to make it look like they're on the same terms and they're in good standing. They really are not. The president has slammed Mitch McConnell left and right. He has slammed Mitch McConnell's first bill. He slammed Mitch McConnell's second bill. He has not taken a role in drafting any of Mitch's bills. He has taken a role in arguing against Mitch's bills, negotiating against Mitch's bills, disavowing himself of Mitch's bills. So now, at the 11th hour, with the president down in the polls, he wants to have Mitch McConnell help him? How? At a number that Mitch says for 6 months he would never support? How? With a Senate that's closed because of COVID-19, but the president himself is traveling apparently to Florida tomorrow. There were some incredible questions from last night, nearly 900 of them. Let me go over some of them right now. Aaron, Nancy doesn't care about us, the American people. She's only worried about ourselves. Kayla, we aren't getting anything. Pelosi's hatred for Trump is just blocking everything. Carlita, she's still trying to get rid of Trump instead of helping us. Liz, she's lost her mind. She just needs to give in so that people can get their stimulus. Jim, we're hungry for food. Nancy's hungry for power. Brian, remove Nancy on assistance to impeach the president. Malia, I'm so sick of Popeye and Olive. The president needs to sign an executive order. Michelle, she's doing all this because of last night. She's pulling all strings. Carol, maybe the House should call a vote and dismiss her. She's not thinking right. Jamie, problem solvers bill, bipartisan, 85% of Congress voted for it, has everything in it that's great for the people, not otherwise Congress. Then Nancy, $2.2 trillion bill killed it. Tweet Trump, please. Amen. Tim, Nancy, what goes around comes around. Comrades, is something going to get you yours in the purple powers? They're helping politicians because politicians ain't. Nancy, these people are raising my blood pressure every day, living it in and living it up. Somebody mentioned before that when this pandemic first broke out, there was going to be so much crime because the government was not helping people. And now I see people are losing their homes, losing their jobs, not caring. People are on the streets, jobless. Magic Laura, Nancy psychotic, loves her job. Why these clowns are doing a diversion? These clowns have the me, myself, and I agenda and not the American people. Subrahama, I'm so sorry, I just getting confused. Did we hit Nancy or Trump? Picture two houses somewhat far apart, a crowd of cartoon people. That's how I see it. Barbara, she's out of her mind. Patricia, someone needs to check on Nancy Pelosi's mental health. Lucy Burns, it's so bad out here. Every time I get so targeted, it's packed. Jamie, Pelosi's just a thing waiting to kill the virus. Someone needs to stamp her. It's Rinda, she's never going to sign. So you see what people's opinions were 20 hours ago when there wasn't a $1.8 trillion offer. The offer was less. They said that even at that time, Nancy was not going to sign. What do you think? Go to Friends Channel, subscribe. Subscribe because there's so many developments and I'm here to help you get through the finish line. Also, like this video. Coming up next is Pelosi versus Mnuchin with changing developments about the stimulus negotiations. And then after that is Afternoons LALATE. Stay informed, stay focused, stay smiling, and stay here. As always, with LALATE. Hope you have a great afternoon.